But first, let's get the perspectives of someone who has occupied that office before. In fact, the one who handed over to Godfrey Dami in that office, the Honorable Marietta Brew appear upon. She served as Attorney General in the John Mahama government. Madam, you're welcome to Eyewitness News.
Thank you very much, Umaru.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm doing well. You've been following the news space, I'm sure. You've been hearing all the issues that have been coming up. The latest one is the gentleman whom your party sponsored in the Asin North constituency, the issue of treason that is hanging over his neck, the charges that are not treason, I beg your pardon, the issue of perjury that is hanging over his head. There's a call for him not to be prosecuted. The Attorney General is not very happy with that. Yesterday, I spoke to Ayikwe Otu. He served as an Attorney General in the Kufuor government. He said politically, he thought there was a need for that nolly prosecutor to be entered. I wanted to pick your perspectives as well to this issue.
I totally agree with my learned senior Ayikwe Otu. And I know the call was also made earlier by the Domaheni. I agree with both of them that this is a time, or in these particular circumstances, the AG ought to enter a nolly prosecutor. I agree with them.
And what will be your basis for agreeing beside the other points? What will be your key arguments?
Listen, look at the fact of this particular case, which is public knowledge. It was the facts were articulated clearly in the Supreme Court decision. Quayson, as far back as 2019, had filed an application with the Canadian authorities to renounce his citizenship, his Canadian citizenship, as far back as November 2019. Now, we all know what happened in 2020. In 2020, COVID happened. And we all saw that the entire world almost came to a standstill. He could not get his renunciation certificate early enough, that is before October 2020, when he was filing his nomination with the Electoral Commission. Ordinarily, he should have had it by June 2020. It didn't happen until November 2020. Before the election, he had his renunciation certificate. At the time he won the election, he had his renunciation certificate. By the time he was being sworn, he had his renunciation certificate. That notwithstanding, the Supreme Court annulled his election. He's been re-elected again by the people of Asin North. And they have re-emphasized that this is the person we want to represent us in Parliament. Having regard to all those circumstances, and the fact that the people have again chosen to re-elect him in the spirit of unity, in the spirit of fairness, in the spirit of justice, I think that the AG ought to enter a nolly prosecutor. These are my views. Pursuing the case with alacrity and vigor with which he seems to be proceeding now, I do not think it's fair, and I do not think that it's in the interest of the people of Asin North. It's not in the interest of the nation for us to continue on that trajectory. Those are my views.
You talk about fair, you talk about justice. The Attorney General says that, and I'm going to read point 2 of his statement for you. He says, the Attorney General respectfully reminds Ghanaians of the principle of the equality of all persons before the law enshrined in Article 17(1) of the Constitution. No person living in Ghana, citizen or non-citizen, is above the laws of Ghana or immune from an application of same. Now, the Attorney General is simply saying that if the man has conducted himself in a way that the AG believes is criminal, he ought to be trialed. And he says that everybody is entitled to a lawyer and all of that. Why don't you let that process go through? Why should he be treated specially and differently from everybody else, or than everybody else who is suspected of having committed a crime?
Would this be the first time that the AG has entered a nolly prosecutor? No, it would not be. You recollect that in the past, there were some persons being prosecuted for, I believe it was an attack on the KMA officers or an officer of the KMA. A nolly prosecutor was entered by the office. You recollect that?
I recollect Aisha Huan, the Chinese national. That comes to mind immediately. The issue about the KMA officer, I'm not sure. I think they came into the court, freed the guys. Later on, I think they were fined. The court fined them. That's what I recollect. I'm not sure. Okay. But I get the point you're trying to make about nolli prosequi. However, the Attorney General says, even though we have the right to speak on matters before the court, we are going beyond our limits in making these comments. I'm looking for the quote for you, where he says that the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice has observed with serious concern the increased tendency for various persons, including members of the legal profession of considerable standing, to run extremely prejudicial commentary on cases pending before the courts. Now, your call that you are making, the Domahini's call and several other calls that are being made, he believes that this prejudices the case, and it even affects his attorneys who help him prosecute cases of this nature. You have been in that office before.
I totally disagree. Now, a nolli prosequi entered by an attorney general simply means I will no longer prosecute. It does not in any way interfere with the administration of justice. A call for that does not interfere with the administration of justice.
Does it not amount to giving directions and directive to the independent office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice?
Not at all. It's a plea. Nobody can force him to enter a nolli prosequi. But you can plead with him, which is what everybody is doing now. The Domahini, the chiefs of assent, my latest senior Quayson, and I am adding my voice to it, that he should enter a nolli prosequi. It is a plea. It is not a direction. Please remember that the Office of the Attorney General and Minister for Justice is a public office. At any point in time, that office is also subject to criticism by the public. Now, if the public believes that the exercise of those powers are not being conducted in a manner that is fair, in a manner that is just, in a manner that brings about, in this case, the unity and an end to this particular trajectory they are on, the public are entitled to comment. The public are entitled to make the call on him. There's nothing wrong with that. Nobody is forcing him to. It's just a plea that is being made to him.
The question...
So I'm not sure why you're saying that it affects his attorneys, it affects him. Even the president is criticized. The judiciary are subject to criticism. Why not the office of the Attorney General, that we do not think that these particular steps we are taking augur well for everybody? We are pleading with you. Exercise it in a particular manner. What is wrong with that?
He thinks that you are asking him to exercise the discretion in a particular manner simply because this person that we're talking about is a person who is a high political or a profile, a political person or a politically exposed person, and he thinks that that is not fair. Everybody is equal before the law.
Everybody is equal before the law. That is correct. Everybody is equal before the law. But we are saying that in these circumstances, we think that it is fair, it is just, it is right that he enters a nolli prosequi. We are all. I'm a very senior lawyer. Ayuko is a very senior lawyer. We will not make this call, and he's occupied that office before. We would not make this call if we thought that it would interfere with his powers. How can the call for you, an AG, to enter a nolli prosequi in a particular case, which is of public importance, which is of public knowledge? Everybody is talking about it. How can that be an interference with their functions? Respectfully, I disagree with that statement.
All right. Finally, you have sworn to defend the Constitution of the Republic as a lawyer and also when you were Attorney General. The Attorney General holds the view that this gentleman held dual citizenship or had issue of allegiance before contesting the 2020 election. He swore to a public document or to a public officer that he did not hold any public allegiance. Now, the Supreme Court has affirmed that position of the AG, and indeed that position which has led to the seat becoming vacant. The Attorney General wants to prosecute that crime against the Constitution. You are saying that even though that crime has been committed, it should be shelved. Does it not mean then that next time the floodgates will be open for many more people to commit more crimes? And I'm not saying that James Quayson has committed a crime. Everything I'm saying now is without prejudice to what's happening in the court. But the criticism is that you're opening the floodgates for more people to commit more crimes against the Constitution, and because these people get elected, they go free.
I disagree with you. I totally disagree with you. Now, yes, the Supreme Court has declared his election null and void. And he put himself up for re-election. And he's been re-elected again by the people. And I'm glad you are saying that you are not saying that he has committed any crime. He hasn't been found guilty. So I think that you should withdraw that. You should declare that he has not been found guilty.
I've explained that. I said whatever I've said is without prejudice. That is the case of the Attorney General in court. I'm just saying that that's the case they are prosecuting.
We are simply saying that looking at all the circumstances, and remember, we are not just saying this in a vacuum, that just enter a knowledge for score. We are saying that looking at all the circumstances, the peculiar circumstances, I remember that at the beginning of this interview, I looked at the circumstances surrounding the filing of his nomination and his election in 2020. We are saying, and then his re-election. We are saying that looking at all those circumstances, and remember, every case is different. We are saying that we are pleading with the Attorney General, he should enter a nullus post require.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your views with us, madam.
You're welcome.
That's former Attorney General, the Honorable Marietta Brew Apia. She served as Attorney General in the Mahama government.